We have with us a doctor, civil servant, activist, legislator, a leader, Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan.
Coming to the session, it's my privilege to introduce to you all our distinguished guest, Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, who in fact, according to me, needs no introduction, especially for those who are familiar with the development of grassroots level politics in India or political movements in India, and more importantly, political reforms in India. Today we all talk about reforming the Indian political system, but he is the one who has initiated long before all these movements. Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan is a political reformer, the founder and the president of Loksatta Party, which is currently active in states, namely Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana. He served as a member of the Andhra Pradesh Legislative Assembly from Kukatpalli constituency, sorry for my pronunciation, okay. He is well known for his role in electoral reforms and the passage of Right to Information Act. He is also the founder and general secretary of Foundation for Democratic Reforms, which is an independent policy think tank and research resource center. He obtained his medical degree from Guntur Medical College. Most importantly, Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan cleared Indian Administrative Services examination in the year 1980, and notably, he was the All India topper in that year. After that, he joined public administration and worked in fields of agriculture, irrigation, technology, and youth rehabilitation projects in various capacities and in various districts of Andhra Pradesh. So you can see the mix of his experience. Some of his achievements during his 16 long years in government as a civil servant include rehabilitation of 8,000 youth from displaced families of the Visakhapatnam steel plant, reconstruction of drainage and irrigation network in Krishna and Godavari deltas, successful mobilization of the farmers on a large scale to take up irrigation schemes, and strengthening the credit cooperatives by making them independent from government control. He is also credited for the development of InfoCity, high-tech city in Hyderabad to facilitate the growth of software industry. Today, Hyderabad is known as one of the major hubs of software industry, and he is one of the major contributors to that. Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan has written extensively in various newspapers such as Times of India, the Economic Times, Financial Times, Financial Express, The Hindu, and Enadu, and hosted several television shows covering elections and politics. Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan has been felicitated with several laurels. Most important among them are Rotary Manav Seva Award in 2002, Tirupati Raju Memorial Award in 2004, Bharat Asmita Jana Jangran Shrestha in 2005, felicitated by Hyderabad Software Exports Association for his contribution to the growth of IT industry in Andhra Pradesh. So this is a brief introduction about Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan.
Debate. Since then, the debates continued. Until 1988, the American Women Voters League, they were the ones who conducted the debates. So, institutional change, systematic, small, big, bit by bit, bit by bit. In the past 18 years, 19 years, I've been privileged to bring about significant, though small changes in this country. Voter registration was terrible 15, 20 years ago, terrible. I've given enormous amount of time and energy. It didn't even require change of law or constitution, nothing. And yet the amount of effort I had to put in to convince these blokes, the institution of Election Commission, whom we all admire and respect, we think it's a great institution. It is in many ways. It's also pretty status quoist, pretty inefficient, pretty useless when it comes to reality. So every day I had to goad them into action. One day I had to bully the then Chief Election Commissioner who was sitting in the audience, and I was addressing the gathering. I had to use some harsh words which I cannot repeat in the presence of women. But today it's much better, and yet it's not good enough. When I first came out with the disclosure of names of criminals who were contesting elections, people were shocked. They never thought it was possible. They never thought I would be able to live and tell the story. Then that led to litigation. All parties ganged up and said, nothing doing, we will not reveal. We have a moral right to have criminals in parliament and assemblies. You have no right to know that we are criminals. That was the basic argument. They said, we will not reveal our antecedents. Then I had to fight that, then went to the Supreme Court again, and finally got that. At least we know who these blokes are, to some extent, not fully. Tehelka scam happened. Do you remember Tehelka scam? Defense purchases, Kargil war and all that, in the earlier NDA government. George Fernandez, the defense minister, was the main accused in Tehelka. I knew George a little bit, so I met George in his South Block office. After the preliminaries, he had some respect for me. He published some of my writings in his own paper, which I was editing earlier when I was a member of parliament. After all that, I said, George, I came to discuss Tehelka with you. And George was stunned. He didn't know whether to allow me to sit there or throw me out. After all, he had all these armed forces fellows with the guns and uniforms and all stuff. I said, I have not come here to judge you. I don't know whether you were corrupt or not in this case, nor am I particularly bothered, because I know for a fact that if you want to run your politics legitimately also, for legitimate activity, like you want to have a public meeting, you want to publish literature, you want to have pamphlets, posters, travel, research, have an office, you need money. You have not created a mechanism to actually have legitimate money for legitimate political activity. So can we use this Tehelka as an opportunity to at least create that now? One small little step. George came out of his seat and embraced me. I persuaded every single person that mattered. Prime Minister Vajpayee, L.K. Advani, Arun Jaitley, who was the law minister at that time, Manmohan Singh in Rajya Sabha, the current president who was in Rajya Sabha at that time, Sonia Gandhi, the former Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao, and many others, and they all broadly agreed. Then we could craft a consensus and unanimous law was enacted. India has arguably the finest political funding law, creating incentive for funding a political party. Giving full tax exemption to the donor. Now, has it solved all the problems? Not at all. I knew then, I know now. If this is America, the American political crisis would have been solved. This law would be enough. But in India, the expenditure in politics is not a legitimate one. It's an illegitimate one in a large measure. It's about vote buying. I always knew that. And for that requires much bigger effort, many more things to be changed. But an institutional mechanism is now created, at least legitimate parties. Without that, Loksatta Party could not have been there. Without that, IIM Party could not have been there. No way. Today, at least, to challenge the establishment, there is some mechanism. And for the establishment, the good guys in the establishment, to do something better, there is a mechanism. That we don't have to do dirty things in order to actually do what we're supposed to be doing anyway. So step by step, a local courts law. In 2009, I had to persuade everybody. The law is in place, but the courts don't want to use it. I made sure that the local courts are entirely under the control of the high courts. There is a provision for appeal. There is a presence of lawyers so that lawyers are not antagonized. But it's a summary procedure, so quick justice is guaranteed. The idea is the broken window syndrome. If simple cases, civil or criminal, they're all settled quickly, inexpensively, you create a culture of rule of law. You don't clutter the higher courts unnecessarily. They can take care of the bigger cases. People have confidence in the system. You don't have to depend on gundas because there's now a market demand for criminals in India. You're all market guys. If there are no criminals, we will create criminals because they are the undeclared judges in this country. Because there's no justice system worth mentioning for the ordinary citizen in India. Until you do that, you cannot end criminalization in society or in politics. But who are blocking it? After I got the law in 2009, I wanted 5,000 courts by today. It should have happened. The law actually says there shall be, for every intermediate panchayat, one or more local courts. We have 172 by now. No politician is stopping it. The law actually mandates it. The money comes from Delhi. The High Court doesn't want it, the lawyers don't want it. The High Court actually is for lawyers, but not for the people of the country. So, it's very complex. But we have to systematically build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The Right to Information Act. I was not one of those who believed that Right to Information Act is a solution for everything, but I knew it's an important pillar. And I was privileged to be able to work with Aruna and others, actually I was given the privilege of the veto rights because they realized that I would bring some balance. Aruna wanted whatever is discussed in the cabinet must be known to people instantly. We have a right to know because we are the sovereigns, they are our servants. Whatever they discuss, tell us. I told Aruna, look, transparency is not nakedness. We want transparency. If everything discussed in the cabinet is revealed, the government will not function for 1 minute. A minister who hates the chief minister or prime minister, he will not say, I hate you, therefore I oppose you. He says, sir, I respect you, I admire you, blah, blah, blah. But sir, this action of yours, it will hurt the poor man, my heart is bleeding. Because there's always somebody who's going to get hurt. Because governance is about reconciling the limited resources with unlimited wants. It's reconciling the conflicting interests among various groups in society. In that reconciliation, you have to apply your best judgment. Decide what is best. Do I put money in school education of quality and healthcare of quality and skills and jobs and infrastructure? Or do I simply give freebies every month and free electricity, free this, without actual electricity? It's a very hard choice. And the fellow who wants to give free electricity always wins. I was listening to Narendra Modi for a minute today in Delhi. Even poor Modi, first of all, he made Delhi election an important issue, which is wrong. He's undermining his authority and the nation's good. And then he is now compelled to say, what was the gas price 1 year ago? 1,200 and something rupees. What is the price now? 605 rupees. Poor Modi, who never used this argument throughout the election, to win a few silly seats and get some idiots into municipal corporation positions. It's basically Delhi municipal corporation election. It's not a state. It's a municipal election. For that, to put his fellows instead of some other fellows there, you have to use this argument. See the loss to the country. So in that context, I argued that the people have a right to know what is decided and what are the reasons for that, but not exactly what transpired, because then no government can run. So we got a wonderful law, one of the finest in the world. I was privileged to get the 91st Amendment to the Constitution, the anti-defection thing. Without that, by now, governments would have changed every day, buying and selling of MLAs and MPs. But I'm not happy with that because now it's muzzling all MPs and MLAs. The party bosses became autocratic. That has to be corrected. 97th Amendment, the cooperatives, the government was controlling, and my fight for a generation was how to liberate the cooperative form of organization, like other forms of organization, the clutches of government. Finally, we got the 97th Amendment. It took me for 15 years, 20 years to get it. But in 2012, December, that became a constitution. 121st Amendment, just last month we got it. The Supreme Court and High Court judges, because if institutions are not built properly, as people lose faith in political process, they think bureaucrats are great. If they lose faith in bureaucrats, they think judges are great. So judges thought they really are divine dispensation, they are God's gift to this country. Therefore, they now want the power to appoint their successors. Nobody in India has the official power to appoint successors. Of course, yes, we do have prime ministers appointed by their parents and this sort of, but it's not officially so, right? It's not constitutionally so. The judges rewrote the constitution to say that we will decide who our successors are. So for long, I thought very hard. Because if even the court's credibility is lost in moments of great crisis, for instance, Ayodhya dispute, Ram Janmabhoomi versus Babri Masjid, whatever it is, once the courts took note of it and then gave a verdict, an order, all of us buried the hatchet and kept quiet. We don't even know what they said, we don't care. We just want somebody fairly objective, reasonable to sit and say something, instead of this Hindu, Muslim, this party, that party. Reservations issue. There's no way you can satisfy everybody. We need the courts to bring some balance there, fix the boundaries there. Interstate water disputes. You have, what is that river between Tamil Nadu and, this state. Mullaperiyar Dam. What a silly issue. See the kind of agonizing, emotional churning in both the states. So politicians can never resolve that, given India's complexity and diversity. But for the court to be able to resolve these issues in moments of great crisis, they must first preserve their credibility. Where the courts want to be, the next district magistrates, the next managers, the next a superintendent of police. They want some petty executive authority because in their own scheme of things as children and young people, they saw the collector exercising authority, SP exercising authority. They want to be that rather than the Supreme Court of India. So we had to bring some order to that. And that's why first appointment of judges. So institution after institution. What I'm arguing is that things are changing. They're not changing as fast as they should. But things are actually better than they were. Take the states. 20, 25 years ago, states were terrible. Whenever Indira Gandhi or some other prime minister wanted, they could dismiss the government at will. Article 356 or something. If you wanted to establish one private factory in Kerala, you had to go to Delhi and beg them. And you had to beg always the Prime Minister of the day, sir, please have a public sector investment in my state. Kerala always is unhappy that there is no public investment in this state from Delhi. And so on and so forth. Today, much of these things, they have changed. Bombay Court judgment, then the 10th Finance Commission to change the center-state financial relationships, the license permit largely has gone. The public investments anyway have disappeared in large measure, at least in industry. The coalition governments, all these things give the states the breathing space. So institutional change is a very complex one. Even building an office or running an office or a small enterprise is a hell of a complex one. A family, for instance, very complex. But imagine dealing with 1.3 billion people, their dreams, their aspirations, their backgrounds, their cultures, their beliefs, their history. And how do you somehow reconcile? That requires a complex but workable institutional mechanism. The problem with this country is we fail to either design institutions well or make them work reasonably. And therefore, we have this sachanash. This country is all rotten, everybody is bad, everybody blames everybody else. We have a classic system of alibis, plausible, realistic alibis. Go to your collector, the district judge, the chief minister, the prime minister, everybody has a fantastic alibi. You go to him with your problems, by the time you come out of his room, your shirt sleeves are wet with his tears. That doesn't work. Bring a mechanism where authority and accountability go together. Because there are areas where the government seems to be working. Could you identify some areas where the government seems to be functioning reasonably well? Election conduct? Anything else? Pardon? CAG. Okay, that's not a function that citizen feels, so let's come to functions that you and I feel. Elections is one. Anything else? Railways is not too bad. Well, we complain. Actually, the fact that in India, millions of people are ferried and rail lines by and large run on time is not a joke. It's not bad. Yes? Judiciary? My God, it's functioning? Have you ever gone to court? For anything? As an exercise, I urge you, Professor Nair, really, ask them to go to a trial court. Just spend a day. Just sit there, be a fly on the wall. In any court, a trial court. Just spend a day. Come back and tell me then. Nothing. I want nothing more. Just, after all, we do while away some time, right? You just go spend one day there. In any court of your choice. I don't impose any condition. But there are some areas where we do seem to function well. Disaster relief, for instance. We're not bad. Given our resources, India is actually one of the better countries. VIP visits, which I would say actually is another disaster for the people generally. But we do well. You know, when the Prime Minister comes, President comes, somebody, a foreign head of state comes, we do pretty well. So what happened in these areas? Wherever you have made sure there's an alignment between authority and accountability, things function pretty well. Wherever you have very diffuse accountability, and there's no alignment of these two, you don't know who is responsible for what, the buck doesn't stop anywhere, then things are pell-mell. And that's unfortunately the bulk of our governance in this country. So you can go on and on. Everywhere, institutions, incentives. I don't want to say much more. I want you to really reflect on this deeply. It's not my argument that we live in heaven. If that is the case, I would not have left my medical professional life where I was, my parents with tears in their eyes said, why do you want to join the IAS? You're a monarch, you have professional competence, you can lead a life of dignity without depending on somebody else. I said cruelly, I didn't come here for advice. I came to you to seek your help. If you help me, it will happen a little easy. If it doesn't, we don't help, it will happen a little tough. Either way, I'll do it anyway. Today, of course, I would not say in such harsh language, but then a young man, that arrogance and passion. And then I would not have left the IAS if I really believed that everything is fantastic in this country or the world. I left it without even waiting for a pension. And nobody kicked me out. People with tears in their eyes begged me to stay on, including my bosses, the chief secretary, the people in government, other people. But when the country needed to be changed, some of us have to make that effort. So it's not my case that we live in a perfect world, but it's my case that this is something that we can increasingly perfect. That's what education is about, true education. That's what human imagination, innovation is about. That's what institutional building is about. That's what best practices are about. Our challenge is how to replicate the best practices. You don't have to do something extraordinarily original. You're not doing some Charles Darwin's work or Einstein's work. You're simply replicating what functions well in most situations and adapting it, improving it. Forget in that either we look for one dramatic instant nirvana, or we perpetually attack ourselves and indulge in self-flagellation. Because this morality